You've seen it everywhere, right? On company websites, on the side of a truck, on product packaging, that little ISO 9001 logo. But what does that badge of approval actually mean? Is it just some fancy corporate jargon? Well, today, we're going to pull back the curtain and find out what it's really all about.
So, let's kick things off with a pretty fundamental question. Think about it. What really separates a business that's always struggling, constantly putting out fires, from one that's successful and seems to have it all figured out? A lot of the time, it really just boils down to one simple thing. It's systems.
I mean, just picture this. You've got two companies. Organization A, we'll call them the firefighter. Every single day is a mad dash, reacting to customer complaints, fixing the same mistakes over and over again. They're just stuck in this chaotic loop. But then you've got Organization B, the proactive achiever. They aren't fighting fires, they're preventing them. They're focused on making things better, smoother, and more efficient. And that is the gap ISO 9001 is designed to bridge, to help companies get from that chaotic fighting mode to being a proactive achiever.
And you know who understood this perfectly? Steve Jobs. Back in 1990, he said this, and it is just so true. Customers don't form their opinions on quality from marketing. They form their opinions on quality from their own experience. You can spend millions on flashy ads, but if the product breaks or the service is terrible, that's what people remember. That experience is the quality. And a good quality management system, that's the engine making sure that experience is a great one.
Now, when you hear the word standards, you probably think of something super modern and corporate, right? But the truth is, the core idea is, well, it's ancient. For as long as people have been trading stuff with each other, there's been a need for some kind of system to build trust. And this timeline really puts it into perspective. We're talking way back 11th century BCE in China, where they had early forms of quality standards. Fast forward to 1215, and even the Magna Carta got in on the act, standardizing measures for things like wine and cloth to make sure nobody was getting ripped off. Then, after World War II, things really started to look like the systems we know today, which all led up to the birth of the very first ISO 9001 in 1987. So yeah, it's just the latest chapter in a really, really old story.
Okay, so we've been throwing this term around, Quality Management System, or QMS. What is that exactly? Let's just strip away all the jargon. The simplest way to think about it is this. It's the company's operating system, but specifically for quality. It's the rulebook, the playbook. It's all the processes an organization uses to make sure it consistently makes its customers happy.
And this brings us to the core purpose of ISO 9001. What's it really for? It's not about creating internal paperwork for the sake of it. No, it's about sending a message. It's a globally understood signal to customers and partners that says, hey, you can trust us. We have our act together. We have a system that ensures we can deliver on our promises time and time again. It's all about proving you're capable, so people have confidence in you.
But let's be honest for a second. For a long time, ISO 9001 had a bit of a reputation. People saw it as this rigid, bureaucratic monster that was all about paperwork. But then, in 2015, something huge happened. A massive revision came out, and it completely changed the game. And what's wild is that the biggest changes weren't about what they added, but what they took away.
Check this out. This is what they got rid of. They threw out the mandatory quality manual, that giant binder that used to be the centerpiece. They tossed out the requirement for 6 specific, documented procedures that everyone had to have, whether they needed them or not. And they even removed the rule that you had to have one single person, the management representative, in charge of everything. This was a massive shift away from a one-size-fits-all paper-pushing exercise.
So if it's not about the paperwork, what's it about now? Well, it's about being smart. It's about strategy. The new focus is on 1. Really understanding your own business and where it fits in the world. 2. Making top leadership, the C-suite, directly accountable. The buck stops with them. 3. Thinking ahead, looking at risks and opportunities, not just reacting to problems. And 4, finally, giving companies the freedom to decide for themselves what documentation they actually need to get the job done right.
Okay, so with all these changes, it's the perfect time to bust some of the biggest myths that are still floating around about ISO 9001. Let's just tackle them one by one.
All right, myth number 1. You've probably heard this one. Isn't it just a giant pile of paper? And look, in the old days, that criticism, it had some teeth. People pictured these huge binders just sitting on a shelf, collecting dust, and sometimes they weren't wrong.
But the reality now, totally different. The 2015 version basically says, you create the documentation that you need to be effective, nothing more, nothing less. It's all about what's actually useful for your business. It's about value, not just volume.
Okay, on to myth number 2. It's just for the auditors, right? Not for the actual business. The idea here is that you do all this work just to pass a test once a year, and it doesn't actually help you run your company any better.
Yeah, not anymore. The new standard completely flips that idea on its head because it forces top leadership to get involved. To bake this thinking into how the business actually runs, it becomes a real strategic tool. It's no longer just a checklist for some auditor. It's a framework for making smarter decisions and running a stronger company.
So let's zoom out for a second. Why should we even care about all this? Why is this one standard so incredibly important all over the world? Well, it's because it has become a kind of global language. It's a way for any company, anywhere, to say, we know what we're doing.
I mean, just look at this number. As of 2015, there were over 1 million active ISO 9001 certificates out there. That is a lot. This isn't some tiny niche thing. It's a global benchmark. It's what makes it possible for a company in Germany to trust a supplier in Vietnam, because they're both speaking the same language of quality. And this chart really drives that point home. Look at the top 5 countries with the most certificates. You've got China leading the pack by a huge margin, then Italy, Germany, Japan, and the US. These are major players in the global economy, and for them, this standard is absolutely essential for doing business.
Okay, but this might be the single most important thing to understand. When you see that ISO 9001 certificate, what does it actually tell you? Here's what it is. It's a sign that a company has a system for being consistent and for always trying to get better. Now, here's what it isn't. It is not a guarantee that their widget is better than someone else's widget. It's a certification of the process, not the final product.
And that brings us right back to where we started. So I'll leave you with this question. Think about your own workplace or any company you deal with. Is it set up for constant firefighting? Or is it actually architected for the future? Is it built to prevent problems and keep customers happy for the long haul? Because that, right there, is the difference a real quality system can make.